How do Mime Artists, and welcome back to the second part looking at all of the uncommons, commons and rares that will be in the Burning Shadows set. Inside this part there will be lightning, fighting and psychic types, so some awesome ones. Psychic types, one of the most that there will be in any of these, but let's just jump straight into the lightning Pokemon. Starting off again, we've got another lovely one from Gen 1. We've got Pikachu, HP 60, for one colourless, Tail Whip does 10 damage, and for the lightning and a colourless Thunder Shock. Flip a coin, if heads your opponent's active Pokemon is now paralysed. Again, another attack that will help to paralyse or put some special effect onto your opponent's active. Then we've got Raichu, 110. Ability, Evo Shock. This is the one that I think might see some play with things like Alolan Muck GX. When you play this card from your hand to evolve one of your Pokemon during your turn, you may leave your opponent's active Pokemon paralysed. Very useful, and I think probably just a bench tech, maybe thrown in with a couple of de-evolution sprays, something along those lines, to be able to do it a couple of times if they're going to retreat out or they're running Pokemon Center Lady. That probably will see some more play in this new meta. Then for 2 lightning and a colourless, you've got Volt Tackle, 130 damage, and this Pokemon does 30 damage to itself. That attack, somewhat fine, but won't see too much play unless perhaps you're going to be up against a water deck, in which case could be mildly useful. Then Electabuzz, HP 80 for 2 colourless, Punch for 20 damage, and then for the lightning and 2 colourless, Thunder Shock, 40 damage. Flip a coin, if heads your opponent's active Pokemon is now paralysed. Another one that is going to do some special effects to your Pokemon, but I can't see this one seeing too much play because Electivire, 140 HP, its attacks are somewhat good, but they're just not fantastic. We've got Thunder Punch that does 60 plus damage. Flip a coin, if heads this attack does 60 more damage, if tails this Pokemon does 20 damage to itself. You don't want to be doing damage to yourself, and to take the chance with 3 energies for 120, not the best when you could be having a GX out there that could be doing a lot more with the same amount of energies. And then for 2 lightning, 2 colourless, you've got Giga Impact, 170 damage. This Pokemon can't attack during your next turn. So very much like some of the water ones, something like the Lapras, where it can't attack next turn. I think it's Blizzard Burn. Very much the same. For the 140 HP and not a GX, it's somewhat useful, but I can't see it seeing too much play. Then we've got Tynamo, 40 HP, one of the lowest HPs from the set. For 1 lightning energy, you've got Aqua Shock, 10 plus damage. If your opponent's active Pokemon has a water energy attached to it, this attack does 30 more damage. So it could do 40 damage if you've got a choice band on there, and it's something like a Lapras could be doing 70 damage, so just a couple of these and it will be knocked out. Then we've got Electrike, 90 HP for the lightning and the colourless, Small Appetite. If your opponent's active Pokemon's maximum HP is 100 or more, this attack does nothing. This one isn't the best, as quite a few Pokemon's HP are over the 100. All of the GXs are going to be over the 100. Even the Marshadow is 150. We've got Shaman rotating out, and that was 110. So this is only really going to work if it's a lower level Pokemon. If it's just starting out, if it's even some stage 1s are over 100, it's got to be a basic or one of the low level stage 1s. Then you've got Electross, 140 HP for the lightning and the colourless, Dark Clamp, 50 damage. The defending Pokemon can't retreat during your opponent's next turn. So very much like the one that was mentioned earlier, and much like the Rockruff, this one, another one that stops your opponent from retreating out. And then you've got 2 lightning and a colourless, Vacuum Bolt, 80 plus damage. You may do an additional 80 damage. If you do, this does 80 damage to one of your Pokemon. So This one will probably, if you're running just basics, it'll probably knock out one of them, give your opponent a prize if it's a GX, could be on the way to getting half of its health lost if it's one of the basics. Somewhat useful, doing 160 damage. You can take out things like Marshadow GX, but not the best. Last up from this is Togedemaru, another one HP 40, another low HP. For one lightning you've got roll out 20 damage, and for the lightning and the colourless Electro Smash 40 damage. Flip a coin, if heads this attack does 20 more damage. So at the most it'll be doing 60 if you get the heads, 90 with a choice band and Kukui, that very unlikely possibility. It could be doing 110. Can't see it doing that much too often as it's very particular circumstances, but there we go, all of the lightnings in the uncommons, commons and rares. Next up we have Psychic. Oh, there is actually one more. Togedemaru, 40 HP. For just one lightning, it's got roll out 20 damage, one lightning and a colourless for Electro Smash, 40 damage, flip a head if heads, flip a coin if heads, this attack does 20 more damage. So nothing special there really, just another basic into the bunch. Starting off the Psychics, we have Slowking, HP 120, for one Psychic, drift ashore, search your deck for the card, put it into your hand, shuffle your deck afterwards. So very much like some of the other Pokemon we've got, it's just helping you to draw cards, but it's whatever one you like. Could be very useful for getting an Ultra Ball or a supporter that you're going to need for the next turn. Then for 3 Psychic you've got Unarmed, 110 damage. If you have no cards in your hand, this Pokemon can use this attack even without the required energy. Could be incredibly useful if you were to somehow be able to mill your hand down to none. You could use this turn 2 for the 110 knockout on quite a few stage 1s or basic Pokemon. Could be somewhat useful if you're able somehow. Probably can't be used second turn as it's a stage 1 from Slowpoke, but could be used in emergency situations. Very specific circumstances, but could be used nonetheless. Then Wobbuffet, 120 damage. For 3 Psychic you've got Shadowy Knot, 50 times damage. This attack does 50 damage for each colourless in your opponent's active Pokemon's retreat cost. So this could be somewhat useful for a lot of the heavier Pokemon, a lot of the more beefy Pokemon where there are 3 retreat costs, even 4 retreat costs. You could be doing 150, 200 damage, and if you combine this with the stadium that's coming, not Potime but Mount Kalariku or Kilavaka, something along those lines, you could be doing an extra 50 damage every single turn, as that adds an extra colourless into all Pokemon's retreat cost. So if it was originally 4 and doing 200, it's then doing 250. If it was 3, it would then be 4 and it would be doing 200. Very useful. Those two are going to be going together very seamlessly. The next up is Seviper. 100 HP, ability more poison. Put 1 more damage counter on your opponent's poison Pokemon between turns. Quite useful indeed, especially when it's compared with Venomous Fang. For 1 Psychic, 2 colourless, 30 damage and your opponent's active Pokemon is now poisoned. Very useful indeed. Combine those two, it could be doing 50 damage per turn, 2 damage counters from the poison, including that of the ability, and then 30 for Venomous Fang. If you include something along the lines of Alolan Muck GX, this could be doing a lot more as it needs special effects. Then we've got Duskull, HP 60, 1 Psychic for Dark Guidance. Put a basic Pokemon from your discard pile onto your bench. That's any basic Pokemon. That can be basic GXs, that can be things like Drampa, Necrozma, whatever you wish it to be, or it could just be something like a Fomantis or a Wobbuffet, whatever you like, any basic Pokemon. Then for the Psychic and the colourless Spooky Shot, 20 damage. It's mostly just there for the Dark Guidance, but also just a nice cheeky wee attack. Could be helpful if you're going up against something that it's weak to, something like a Garbodor where it could be doing another 40, which could help. Then Dusclops, the evolution, HP 90. For one psychic you've got Night Realm, put 1 damage counter on each Pokemon, both yours and your opponent's. Could be useful, could be somewhat helpful, especially for things like Drampa where you need damage onto your own Pokemon. Then for one psychic, 1 colourless, you've got Ambush, 30 plus damage, flip a coin, if heads this attack does 30 more damage. Basic attack, just a flip attack, won't be used too much. Dusknoir again, 150 HP, ability Dark Invitation. Once during your turn before your attack, you may look at your opponent's hand, put a basic Pokemon you find there onto your opponent's bench and put 3 damage counters onto that Pokemon. So this ability is better than a Captivating Pokepuff, and Captivating Pokepuffs have come back since Leleys have been used a lot more. You use a Captivating Pokepuff on a Lele and it has no ability to go and find a supporter for that person, for your opponent. This one, very useful. You look every turn until they've got a Lele, you stick it down there and you're in charge. They will no longer be able to search for that supporter, or you can just use it on something else that may be necessary. Then for a psychic and 2 colourless, Mind Jack, 30 plus damage. This attack does 30 more damage for each of your opponent's bench Pokemon. Just like the Zoroark that was from Breakthrough that is still in rotation, this one very much the same attack. Croagunk, 60 HP. For 1 colourless you've got Corkscrew Punch, 10 damage. For the psychic and the colourless you've got Frog Hop, 20 damage. Flip a coin, if heads this attack does 20 more damage. Just another basic flip attack. Then you've got Toxicroak, HP 110, Poison Jab, 30 damage. Your opponent's active Pokemon is now poisoned. Then for 2 poison, 1 colourless, Poison Boost, 80 plus damage. If this Pokemon is poisoned, this attack does 80 more damage. Then remove that special condition from this Pokemon. So you'll be going back and forth between the Poison Jab and the Poison Boost, just getting as much as you can. 160 from the Poison Boost with the 30 from the Poison Jab, and it being poisoned, this could be doing 200 damage by the second attack, with the 30 from the Poison Jab, 10 from the Poison, and then just 160 from the Poison Boost. Go back and forth, 200 every 2 turns. Then Venipede, 60 HP, Bug Bite, 10 damage. 2 colourless for Venoshock, 20 damage. If your opponent's active Pokemon is poisoned, this attack does 40 more damage. Another Pokemon that is working on the necessity of special conditions. Then Whirlipede, 90 HP. For a psychic and a colourless, spin turn, 30 damage. Switch this Pokemon with one of your benched Pokemon. Could be quite useful in something along the lines of Golisopod. If you're going to run a Golisopod psychic deck, this could be somewhat useful. Then you've got 2 psychics and a colourless, roll out for 60 damage. Just basic, somewhat useful. Scolipede then 160 HP, which is quite high for a Pokemon that isn't a GX. For 2 psychic and a colourless, Poison Horn, 80 damage. Your opponent's active Pokemon is now poisoned. Then for 2 psychics and 3 psychics and a colourless, Steamroller, 140 damage, and this attack's damage isn't affected by resistance, so quite useful if you're going up against some dark decks. Then Espurr, 60 HP, Misleading Eyes. The defending Pokemon's weakness is now psychic until the end of your next turn. The amount of weakness doesn't change, so somewhat useful, possibly, mildly ish. You could be using this and then switch it out into something along the lines of a Garbodor, and then they will be hitting high if they've used a lot of items. A lot of psychic types from this set and a lot of psychic decks have been used recently. Mewostic, 90 HP, Allure, draw 3 cards. So just like Collect on Lapras, this one helps you to draw into something you might be needing. Then for 2 colourless, Hand Kinesis, 10 times damage. This attack does 10 damage times the number of cards in your hand. So if you're alluring for a couple of turns And then you can hand Kinesis. You could be doing maybe 100 damage, 120 if you're very lucky, but for the most part you might be doing 60, 70 or down in the 40s to 50s, around that range. Then Sandygast, 80 HP. For one Psychic you've got Absorb Life 10 damage, Heal 10 damage from this Pokemon. Yeah, it's another attack, it's there. Then you've got Palisand, 130 HP, Sand Tomb, 80 damage. The defending Pokemon can't retreat during your opponent's next turn. That's for a Psychic and 2 colourless, not too useful. The best part about this card is the next attack, as it will help to stall, especially if you're going to have something like a Float Stone in your hand that you can attach this to next turn. For 4 colourless you've got Dust Storm, 100 damage, discard all cards attached to both players' active Pokemon. So if they've got tools attached, if they've got a lot of energy attached, this will be very useful just to really stall them out of this. But there we go, that's the Psychic. Moving on next to Dark type. Next up here we have the Fighting type. Rhyhorn, 80 HP. For 2 colourless we have Lunge out, 20 damage. Normal, basic first attack, then 2 fighting, 1 colourless. Horn Drill doing 60 damage. Again, not one that you're going to use without evolving it up. For Rhydon here we've got 110 HP. For 2 fighting, 1 colourless, you have Rock Tumble, 80 damage. This attack's damage isn't affected by resistance, so as you'd expect, quite a normal attack. 3 fighting and 1 colourless, you get Mega Horn for 120 damage. Flip a coin, if tails this attack does nothing. So maybe one that if you're going to use this as the main attacker, you'd maybe want to be running Fliptinis in this deck, but there are always Rhyperior, and this one you've got the ability Toppling Wind. When you play this card from your hand to evolve one of your Pokemon during your turn, you may discard the top 3 cards of your opponent's deck. Quite useful just to help mill them out. And I think I didn't mention the HP for this is 160, and the one attack on this one, 2 fighting, 2 colourless, you've got Rock Wrecker, 170 damage. This attack's damage isn't affected by weakness or resistance, and this Pokemon can't attack during your next turn, so very much like Blizzard Burn for Lapras. Then you've got Lunatone, HP 90, ability Heal Block. If you have Solrock in play, Pokemon, both yours and your opponent's, can't be healed. So if you're running Lunatone, Solrock could be somewhat useful, but is quite detrimental to yourself as well. For the attack, Lunar Blast, 30 damage for the fighting and a colourless. Likely not used, possibly just the ability. Could be somewhat helpful in troll decks, something like the Wailord or the Wobbuffet deck. Even something along the lines of just combating Sylveons or used in Sylveon. Then you've got Solrock, which doesn't have the same ability, but for 1 colourless you can draw 2 cards. And then for the fighting you've got Solar Heat, 20 plus damage. If there's a Stadium card in play, this attack does 20 more damage. So just like the first attack of Zygarde EX, very much the same. Helpful to have Stadiums in play. And if you're running fighting, you'd be wanting to run things like Bricklet Hills, so you can get out basic Pokemon like Solrock or Lunatone. Then Riolu, 70 HP. For 1 fighting you've got Punch, 10 damage. For 2 fighting you've got Low Kick, 30 damage. Lucario, HP 120, ability Stance. When you play this Pokemon from your hand to evolve one of your Pokemon during your next turn, you may prevent all effects of your opponent's attacks, including damage done to this Pokemon until the end of your opponent's next turn. Could be somewhat useful, is quite helpful if you've only got a basic Pokemon out there at stage 1 and you're looking to get it evolved up next turn. This Pokemon can be quite helpful just to help stall them and to help not hasten you, but just to make sure that you're able to get what you need out there. And then for 3 fighting you've got Submarine Blow, 120 damage. Sawk here, HP 90. For 1 fighting, quick guard during your opponent's next turn, prevent all damage done to this Pokemon by your opponent's basic Pokemon. This Pokemon can't use this attack during your next turn. As you'd expect, somewhat useful, could be quite handy, and for the basic, might be thrown into a couple of decks. Then for 1 fighting, 1 colourless, you've got Brick Break, 40 damage. This attack's damage isn't affected by weakness resistance or any other effects on your opponent's active Pokemon. So for things like the Golisopod with the armour, it's not going to take away that 30 from it. Then you've got Crabrawler, 80 HP for 2 fighting, Light Punch, 40 damage. Again, not the best, but you've got Crabominable, 140 HP for 1 fighting, Gutsy Hammer, 80 damage. This Pokemon does damage to itself equal to the number of damage counters on it. So if there are no damage counters already on your Crabominable, this is going to do nothing to it. But if it's already got something like 70, it's going to knock itself out as well. Then for 3 fighting, you've got Double Stomp, 80 plus damage. Flip 2 coins, this attack does 40 more damage for each heads. So with that you could be doing 160 damage, 190 with a choice band, that's the top tier. It'll be doing at least 80. Then another Lycanroc, because what we need from this set, more Lycanrocs. HP 110, Dangerous Claws, 30 plus damage, your opponent's active. If your opponent's active Pokemon is a basic Pokemon, this attack does 30 more damage. So that's going to knock out quite a few things like Fomantis and quite a few others that are very low level that will be seeing quite a lot of play. Things like Trubbish aren't going to be knocked out, but they will just be 10 HP away. Then for 1 fighting, 2 colourless, you've got Corner, 90 damage, and the defending Pokemon can't retreat during your opponent's next turn. So just carrying on from the Rockruff from the last set. Lycanroc here, 110 HP, because we need another Lycanroc. We do not have enough Lycanroc's Pokemon, we need more Lycanroc cards. 1 fighting, 1 colourless Rockthrow, 30 damage. And then for 2 fighting, 1 colourless Accelerock, 100 damage. Can you tell that I am sick of all these Lycanrocs in this mother flipping card game? Then we've got Mudbray, 80 HP for 1 fighting, 1 colourless Stomp. Flip a coin, if heads, this attack does 20 more damage. Then Mudsdale, 130 HP. For 3 colourless, you've got Kick Away, 60 damage, switch your opponent's active Pokemon with one of their benched Pokemon. So if they've got a good attacker out there, you can stick this in there with a DCE and maybe a fighting, and you'll be able to knock it out of the active slot. Then for 1 fighting, 3 colourless, you've got Vigorous Dash, 130 damage. This attack does 30 damage to this Pokemon and 30 damage to one of your opponent's benched Pokemon. Could be somewhat useful, and I'm assuming that that won't be inclusive of weakness and resistance, so it will just be 30 damage straight up to one of the benched Pokemon of your opponent. Last one here for fighting, we have Passimian, 110 HP, 2 colourless, you got Punch for 30 damage, and then 2 fighting for Intentional Grinding, 90 damage, and discard a Pokemon tool from your hand. If you can't, this attack does nothing. Not the best, as you want to be keeping your Pokemon tools, certainly. I can't see an instance in which this is going to be overly preferable to use unless you're in a very desperate spot. And if you're using this Passimian, you probably are in quite a desperate spot. Not the best card. So there we have all of the commons, uncommons and rares from the lightning, fighting and psychic types. In the next video, although they all should be going out about the same time, the next one we're going to be looking at the dark, the fairy, the dragon and the normal type. So some awesome ones coming up in the next video as well. But thank you very much for watching, and how do, Mime Artists?
Eggs! Eggs! E-double-G-S eggs!